So after 8 years, I found it myself to watch The Mummy 2017. Now for those that care, I'm gonna spoil the movie. You don't care, so here we go. So I could say this movie says a lot without saying a lot. Now that is mostly due to the fact that this movie doesn't know what it wants to be. Does it want to be a mummy movie like The Mummy 1999? Or it's an action movie with a comedy with a love story and it's done real well, balanced really well? Does this movie want to be a Mission Impossible movie? Does this movie want to be the start of a grander thing, which obviously that's what it was trying to do? It is just kind of all over the place. I'm not going to call this movie the worst thing in the world or anything like that because there are some fine enough moments, but the movie drops you in with these characters and they expect you to know about them right away and care about them right away. Now, a lot of movies do that, but they're able to display those characters throughout the movie of like who they really are, give some backstory, you get what's going on. But The Mummy 2017 here does such a bad job with that you just don't ever get any info out of any of these characters throughout the whole movie. You just know Tom Cruise, which his character's name is Nick. He was an army guy and he's a thief of sorts because he steals artifacts. And also he slept with the blonde girl. Okay, and they kind of like each other and help each other. That's it. It almost feels like we missed a whole movie before this movie. That's the best way I could explain that one. They don't do a very good job at fleshing out these characters at all. I mean, they are like the most basic surface level characters you're ever going to find. I don't mean this as a insult to video games, but they feel like video game characters where you get just the most basic things about them, like their name and occupation. That's it. And let's go world hopping, but they don't even world hop in this movie. They only go to 2 locations. That's it. But moreover, this movie, there's stuff there. I will give it that. I think there is a okay movie in here. Again, it just doesn't know what it wants to be because it can't be a good love story because we don't know why Nick and the blonde girl, her name is Jenny, why they actually like each other. Yes, we get the exposition dump of, oh, they spent the night together the night before and Tom Cruise stole something of hers. Oh, the map, stole a map from her. That's all we get. We're supposed to get like, oh, they actually like each other a whole bunch. Meh. All right, sure. And then we get the backstory on the mummy lady, which, all right, she wants to be evil and take over her kingdom 5,000 years ago, but she fails and gets thrown into a sarcophagus. And there you go. Again, it just doesn't know what it wants to be. There's no point in what they're doing. I've not watched The Mummy 99 in a very, very long time. I mean, probably 15 years. But that movie you can go watch right now, and there's a beginning, middle, and end. There's a climax. There's a love story being told. There's a ton of action. There's comedy. You know who the characters are, what they do, their motivations. But here in this current Mummy movie, or current, it's what, 8 years old now? You don't know why any of them exist. You don't even get why Dr. Jekyll even exists. You're just like, oh, he turns into Mr. Hyde. Okay, but why does he do those things? Why did he do that to himself? The Jenny lady, how does she get into this world? We just get, oh, she was hired. But why? Tom Cruise, aka Nick, steal all these things and still be a part of the military. And then to boot, his best buddy is Nick from New Girl, which just tonally does not fit this movie at all. And I will give this movie a tad bit of praise. I thought this movie was gonna be way more quippy and way more Marvel-y in its humor, but it wasn't. There was some moments of like, oh yeah, okay, sure, you know. Ugh. And there's also some moments when Tom Cruise and some other characters would just get flung around. You're just like, in what world? Tom Cruise's character might be kind of indestructible at that moment. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Still, though, the physics of stuff don't make sense sometimes. But kind of getting back to the structure of the movie here. The first 45 minutes, yes, 45 minutes of this movie doesn't do anything. It doesn't even really get the plot going in a way because the main plot of the movie, if I had to actually pinpoint it, is Nick learning that he's cursed and that the mummy lady wants to kill him, turn the Nick character into a god. That's pretty much what you're getting at there. But again, the first 45 minutes is just Nick kind of running around, having visions, being chased a little bit, the mummy lady recouping herself by siphoning the life force from people. Okay, cool. But did you need to take 45 minutes to do this? They already did such a poor job of establishing the characters in the first half of the movie. Why didn't you get the plot going quicker? It took forever. And I honestly was expecting some big action spectacles. And there was the one, I guess, with the plane falling out of the sky, but it wasn't all that impressive on screen. I don't know. I just was expecting a bit more since it is a Tom Cruise movie because he does so much of the Mission Impossible movies that we'd see a bit more here, but we really didn't. Again, this movie says so much without saying anything, and it tries to do so many things, but it does nothing at the same time. There are little minute things that I've found cool in this movie, but at the same time, I feel like I missed a whole movie before this movie. This essentially is not the Iron Man to the MCU. This would be like the third or fourth movie in the MCU. This is what that felt like. It feels like you're supposed to know all these established things already, which if you have a knowledge of the Universal monster movies, you kind of do, but still, this is supposed to be building a whole new thing, and they do not do a good job at explaining things and deepening the characters, explaining the world at all. The coolest part of the whole movie, in my opinion, when Tom Cruise walks through like the basement and you see like the creature of the Black Lagoon hand, you see Dracula's skull, and you see some other things that are, nods at the Universal monsters. I don't know. I found that fun. I found that cool. Everything else was just, oh my goodness. It was like, what are you trying to do here? You're trying to do so much, but at the same time, it's not going well. Now, I did think Russell Crowe was pretty decent as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Again, they could have explained that a lot more. I've read the book, believe it or not, so I get the gist, but again, that's another interesting character they could have kind of delved in a little bit more in, like, oh, this is why he's this way, this is why he runs this organization, why he's essentially the Nick Fury of the monster universe. You just don't have a reason to care, or you don't have any reason to know why you need to care. Now, I'm all for audiences having inferences and understanding what's going on screen. I don't need everything explained to me, but when you don't know anything that's going on or why you should care, that's not good writing. Even with all that said, I think there is a decent movie in here if you're able to reconstruct things, change the tone on some things, and actually try to make this a standalone movie instead of it starting a whole universe. Because this movie essentially does not work as a standalone movie, and it also doesn't work as a movie beginning a new franchise. It's caught in the middle ground where it tries to do both, but it does neither. And ultimately, I find that very unfortunate because I do think that the Universal monsters could be done real well in the modern day. Just here in 2025, they made a Wolfman movie. A few years back, they made an Invisible Man movie that did real well. I think they have 2 Frankenstein movies coming out in 2025. So obviously there is a want for Universal monster movies, and I think you could do a monster universe, but it would just take a lot of patience and a lot of creative ideas to make it all work. Where given this movie, they had neither. They had no creativeness or patience. Now, sequel bait aside, I did think it was a little interesting that Tom Cruise's character became a Egyptian god at the end of this movie. I thought that was a bit interesting. Like, what does that look like going forward? Now, that is more of an interesting movie than what we got. Honestly, this movie shouldn't even been called The Mummy, in my opinion. It should have been called, I don't know, lack of a better term off the top of my head, like the Dark Universe movie. Just something like that, because yes, it's starting the Dark Universe. Just call it that, because this really, again, essentially is not a mummy movie. It's not a Mission Impossible type movie. It's not a love story movie. It's not an anything movie. It's just kind of like a sizzle reel for all the things to come. I know I'm rambling at this point, but I do find it just unfortunate. I know it is 8 years later or whatever. There is a lot of cool things you could do with the Dark Universe, and it's very unfortunate that it just was DOA. I wish they were more creative. I wish they had more patience. I wish they had a better tone. I wish they had better world building right out of the gate too. And oddly enough, I think if you're going to start the Dark Universe, I honestly think a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde psychological thriller would have been a better movie to start this franchise with, more than The Mummy, the big bombastic blockbuster summer thriller. Keep it small and then grow. And I would have loved to see a more psychological thriller of Russell Crowe going back and forth between Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That would have been way more interesting, way more compelling. So you could have that movie where he is struggling with it the whole time, going back and forth between the two personalities, and he finally gets a wrangle on it. That's when he realizes that, there's other issues out in the world and he needs to go help others or what have you. Or maybe he has knowledge of this stuff already. That's why he's able to kind of cure himself in a sense or help himself. So he always keeps an eye out for other monstrous things going on in the world. That's how he kind of becomes the Nick Fury, right? And then the next movie could be a period piece of Dracula. You don't have to go back to like the 1700s, but go back to the 1930s, a nice little nod to Bela Lugosi. Have the movie mainly set then. Maybe at the end he doesn't die, but he desiccates. And then he wakes up in modern day in, 2025. And boom, there's Dracula, kind of like Captain America. Then your next movie could be The Frankenstein's Monster. And however that wants to work out, you could have Dr. Frankenstein meet up with Dr. Jekyll, and they work on stuff, and they figure out how they make Frankenstein's monster, and that's an issue, and blah, blah, blah. And then the next one could be an actual mummy movie, and that's when Tom Cruise's character gains the godly mummy powers, and they know that, in the wrong hands, this could be really bad. And maybe he ends up being the Thanos type thing they got to stop in the future, or maybe those powers that he has helps them stop the Thanos type threat later on that they face in movie 5. That's how you do do it, in my opinion. That right there is all more compelling to me than what we got in this hour and 45-minute movie. Again, I think there is a lot of things you can do with the Dark Universe. I know it's not going to happen anymore. There's still a lot of fanfare for these characters, and there are ways to do it in the modern day, and there are ways to franchise it. Again, you just got to be patient and you got to be creative. But saying that, The Mummy 2017 was neither of those things. It was not very creative, and it wasn't being patient at all. Is it the worst movie you're ever gonna watch? No. It occupied an hour and 45 minutes of my time. It was good enough. I still would recommend any of the Mission Impossible movies over this one. I'd recommend The Mummy 1999 over this one, but it does kind of leave you with a what could have been, and that's probably the most unfortunate thing about this movie and the Dark Universe as a whole. But saying all that, let me know your thoughts on The Mummy 2017 down in the comments below. And while you're down there, if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel, that'd be greatly appreciated. Until next time, guys, everyone have a great day. Thanks for watching.